Wisconsin. How you doing, Congressman?
Mike, I am terrific. The sun is up here in northern Wisconsin. It is going to be a magnificent day.
Well, we want it to be another magnificent 39 days, sir. All the way, smooth sailing through this election. Alas, seems perhaps, sir, we have some problems already. Tell us about the absentee ballots that you've discovered in your great state.
Yeah, so down in the city of Madison, they issued over 2,000 duplicate absentee ballots to people who had requested absentee ballots. We received a tip from a voter in Madison that said, hey, we got 2 absentee ballots. And so the city of Madison then came out with a statement and said, hey, nothing to see here. There's up to 2,000 ballots. We're going to take care of them. There's barcodes on the ballots. We will know, and people will only be able to vote once. So they put out this press release saying everything's under control. Well, we pointed out some of the inconsistencies in what they were saying there. First of all, they said it was confined to one ward and up to 2,000 ballots. Turns out it's over 2,000 ballots, and it's spread across 10 wards. They said that the barcodes are on the ballot rather than the envelope, and that, of course, is incorrect. So we called them out on it and posed a whole bunch of questions to find out what is going on here. And they became, of course, very indignant about it and have been trying to cover their tracks ever since.
Okay, so I got a lot of questions about that, but what's the problem with this? Let's say this was never discovered, never uncovered. What could be the bad result?
Yeah, I think there's a few different things, Mike, but I think the primary thing, so ballot harvesting central in Wisconsin is Dane County, which is Madison. The Democrats have a really good ballot harvesting apparatus that is set up there. I mean, they're down there at UW-Madison as well as throughout Madison and Dane County, and they are pushing people to vote. And we're seeing turnouts as high as like 95% in some wards down there over the last few elections.
Whoa.
And it's because they have mastered ballot harvesting. Now, unfortunately, in Wisconsin, ballot harvesting is not illegal. And so the concern is, do some people find out about this and say, we got an opportunity to pick up another 2,215 votes?
Yeah.
And
what
and Mike, we asked them to walk us through it. So here is a simple request at the end of it, Mike. Here's the end of it, is that let's have an investigation. Let's have a third party, independent party come in, and let's make sure, because Wisconsin is one of the, I believe, the 2 biggest states as we see the candidates go around, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. This election has to be above reproach, and Wisconsin is right in the middle of this once again. We have to be above reproach. I asked them to set up a third party, bring somebody in to make sure that there's no way these 2,215 votes could be cast twice, and also to make sure there's not more than 2,215.
Sure. And?
They said there's no need for it. We've got it covered. This was an honest mistake. And so, Mike, let's be fair. Let's be fair. It could be an honest mistake. There may not be anything there. But the city of Madison has this history going back to 2020. If you remember, they had ballots in the park, which I believe were illegal. They had the Dane County clerk who said that just declare yourself indefinitely confined. He did this on a Facebook post. He did not have the authority to say that people can declare themselves indefinitely confined. So rather than 50,000 indefinitely confined people in Wisconsin at this point, we're over 200,000. What does that get for them? Once they show their photo ID that they are indefinitely confined, they never have to show their photo ID once again. It gets them around that requirement. So there's reasons why we question Madison with something like this.
Yeah, so I want to be clear, this mistake that you uncovered, this was, you say these 10 wards, were they all the Madison area?
Repeat that question, Mike.
So, yeah, where did they send these extra ballots out to? Was it in the Madison area, or was it in different parts of Wisconsin?
Yes. So this would have been done by the city clerk's office in the city of Madison. So, yes, At this point, it's confined.
So again, a mistake that happens to be in a predominantly blue area as well is all I'm suggesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's the curious thing about it. And it may not be anything to this, but let's have a thorough review by an independent authority, and let's make sure this is not something that is nefarious.
Of course, if you had 2,000 of these, and if I was running this organization, I would want to know if there were 10,000 of these, just to make sure that we take care of the problem fully, but they wouldn't want to do that. Now, what do you say to the people who say, listen, Congressman, sure, there's no barcodes on the ballot, but there's barcodes on the envelopes. What's the difference between those two things?
Yeah, so this really caught our attention when we first saw this information, when they came out and said the city clerk said there are barcodes on the ballots. Think about it. When people hear that, and virtually every clerk in Wisconsin knows how bad that is. And I've talked to some of them. They're like, no, you never say there are barcodes on somebody's ballot, because they're like, you can track me then. I mean, it is the height of an invasion of privacy. So for them to say that, well, you should have known. We said ballot, but we really meant envelope, the envelope that the ballot goes into. How should we assume that? Should we be assuming that? And if you were an intrepid reporter, Mike, would you just assume, yeah, that's what they meant? Because that's the accusation that has been put out by the Associated Press. And the Associated Press has run cover on them saying, I falsely accused the Madison city clerk. We didn't falsely accuse anybody.
Just quoted them. So you want the ballots on the envelope? Sorry, you want the barcodes on envelopes, which is where they are. And that's what's used to make sure that people don't send in duplicate ballots?
Yeah, that is correct. The barcodes appear on the ballot, and that is supposed to make sure. But that's one of the questions I had for the clerk's office when we said our original 8 or 9 questions to them. Walk us through the process. Are you sure that these 2 ballots will not be counted? Because they're telling us, oh, don't worry, this won't happen. Well, you know what? Show us.
Yeah, I don't trust at all. I totally could see a scenario where they just remove the ballot from the envelope and just scan the ballot. I mean, why? I guess they could say they would never do that, but I don't know why they wouldn't. Why one wouldn't do that if given the opportunity. What's the status of indefinitely confined voters in Wisconsin this election?
My understanding is that it holds in place from 2020 that there's still over still over 200,000. Now, I need to check that to make sure that I'm on solid ground in regards to that. But my understanding is that once you've declared yourself indefinitely confined, that you continue to have that into the future. And it's something our state legislature tried to fix. The governor, of course, has vetoed it. And but it is the way they get around it's a way for voters to get around the photo ID requirement. By the way, in 2020, there was a state Senate candidate who declared herself indefinitely confined in western Wisconsin. She was out knocking doors all that fall.
That's great. Yeah, it's great. That's great. That's so of all the voting shenanigans of 2020, the indefinitely confined in Wisconsin was my favorite of them all. Where it's like, oh, we have strict voter ID laws, unless you say you're indefinitely confined and therefore you can't get an ID, in which case you don't need to show one. You're like, oh, well, hold on. And I guess that was thrown in there probably with the best of intentions for, the 90-year-old person who doesn't drive. And instead, now you have 250,000 of those people all of a sudden in Wisconsin during COVID. That is the most obvious fraud alert, I think, of the entire country. So hopefully that's been cleared up a little bit, but I'm not so sure. Any other voting concerns before we move on to other Congress issues?
My only voting concern is there's over 100,000 hunters in Wisconsin that don't vote in every election. You need to go out and vote. If you want to protect your Second Amendment rights, you better get out and vote, because Kamala Harris has made it clear she'll take them away from you. The biggest thing at this point is people have to get out to vote, and there's a few subsets, as I just mentioned, hunters being one of them. We're really trying to convince them, you guys, I know you want to be in a tree stand on November 5th. You're in the rut just as much as the bucks are out here, but you got to take a little time to go vote.
100,000 hunters. What is keeping the hunter from voting? What if you talk to that guy? What are they saying?
Yes, we have been talking to them, and oftentimes it's I don't believe my vote counts. I don't think it makes any difference between the parties. There's a few different things, but it's primarily I don't think my vote counts. But the biggest thing is this is their passion, and the fall is hunting season. These guys are thinking about nothing but hunting. It is it's what they work for, Mike. They work all year long to be able to take that couple weeks to be able to go out and hunt, and they don't want to give it up. And I understand. We all have our passions in life. But if you want to keep your passion, because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have made it clear. I sit on judiciary, as you know, Mike. I see the proposals come through judiciary all the time where they want to take away people's Second Amendment rights, and they're like, well, we're not going to take your hunting rifle. Well, whenever you see the proposals that come forward, it will take people's hunting rifles.